The Tolkien Road, Episode 95, The Lord of the Rings, Flotsam and Jetsam. All right, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through Middle-earth. On this episode, we continue our journey through The Lord of the Rings with Book 3, Chapter 9, Flotsam and Jetsam. Before we get started, why not hop on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback? It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. Or you can stop by tolkienroad.com, learn about previous episodes, and say hey. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/TolkienRoad. Thanks for listening, and enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 95, Lord of the Rings, Book 3, Chapter 9, Flotsam and Jetsam.
Flotsam and Jetsam.
What's up, Greta?
Not much. What's up with you, John?
Not much. About the same, I guess, yeah.
Alright. Right on.
So yeah, we're back to, we're going to cover this whole chapter. You know, it's still a fairly long chapter, but
it moves quickly.
It does, and there was no natural break point because
right. It's just kind of a long conversation.
Well, it really comes down to it's kind of like story time with Pippin, you know.
Yes, who proves himself to be quite the storyteller.
Well, I think that's something that hobbits are generally.
I think yes, I agree.
It's telling stories.
I agree.
Well, before we get started on the chapter in our discussion, we'll begin as we always do with a few announcements and correspondence. So, yes. Just nothing big in the way of announcements this week, other than to say thank you to our Patreon patrons who contribute financially to keeping the Tolkien Road going, and we really appreciate you guys. And we are always looking for more patrons. We have not yet reached our goal for support for the show, so please head on over to patreon.com/TolkienRoad. Or you can just go to tolkienroad.com and it'll take you to Patreon. And, all you got to do is check it out and see if it looks like something you want to contribute to. You can contribute as little as $1 a month if you want. So you should go on over, check it out, and let us know if you have any questions. And any support you can give us in that way, we truly appreciate.
So appreciate. Yeah. Yes.
And, of course,
bit helps.
You get free stuff and might win a contest. There's a monthly contest you'll be a part of if you participate. So
drawing with awesome prizes.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's good stuff.
All right. So what do you got for us? Correspondence Queen.
Correspondence. Yes.
Captain of Correspondence.
So Aaron, the reason Thiessen, he guessed last week's secret word, which was indeed comedy.
Comedy. Yes.
Comedy.
I think perhaps we're being a little too obvious. Have we had multiple people guessing each week? And then, you have to pick the one who comes in first?
Aaron was the only one that guessed this week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
So, y'all need to get on the secret word train.
Yeah.
We have one for this week as well. Rob Fangman chose our secret word for today's episode. Right so, be on the listen out for that.
Be on your tiptoes.
Yes.
Because you never know when the secret word's going to be coming at you.
You never know.
Right.
No falling asleep.
No.
During the episodes. And then,
Unless you're actually trying to go to sleep, which is fine. I mean, if you listen to us when you're trying to go to sleep.
If you find our voices soothing and calming, that's not a bad thing.
We can talk a little more like this. It's NPR.
Yeah, we could.
Welcome to the Tolkien
That's why I can never listen to NPR while I'm driving, because I feel like it puts me in a trance, and then I'm afraid I'm going to go to sleep. But obviously, Aaron gets to pick the word for next week's episode. So, Aaron, hit us up. Let us know what you want the secret word to be for next week.
Or we'll just pick one and attribute it to you. It'll be like a really embarrassing word.
Yeah. And then we'll tell everybody that you chose it.
Yeah.
So, if you want to avoid that potentially humiliating and embarrassing scenario...
That's right.
You should email me.
Yeah.
ASAP.
It'll be something really obvious, like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
But I would love for more people to guess. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guess away. And then we also have a note from Rob, who has given me yet another title. Governor of Cool.
Governor of Cool.
Governor of Cool.
Governess?
No, Governor.
Oh.
Governor of Cool and John the Jester of Jealousy.
Oh, yes. I like that.
But he says, just kidding, you're cool too, John. So, always
nice.
The witty Mr. Fangman.
I'd prefer to be the Jester of Jealousy, honestly.
Okay.
You know, it's like if somebody's, you know, if you got cool in your name, then it's kind of like you're not cool. That's how I always look at it.
Whatever, you're just jealous.
Probably.
That Rob thinks I'm cooler than you.
Well, fits, doesn't it?
Totally, it's perfect.
He got it.
Rob kind of, figured us out pretty good there.
Like if, you're walking around wearing a t-shirt and it's like, I'm cool. It's like, everybody's going to think, no, you're not.
Right, it's because you have to, keep telling yourself.
But then again,
that.
if somebody else tells you that, then,
Right.
I guess you really are.
Which means I truly am cool, because Rob told me I'm cool.
I guess I'd agree with that.
I didn't say I was cool. But Rob sent us haiku, but he also said that he wanted to share how much he loved the name of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It says, Merry and Pippin tell their story about finding the pipeweed in the flood wreckage, and Tolkien collects all the loose threads he has left in the story so far and tidies them up neat in this chapter. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's our episode.
Well,
Rob summed it up pretty perfectly right there.
He did. So if you just want to be done listening right then and there,
Mm-hmm.
we understand. I actually, I've heard this term many a times, Flotsam and Jetsam, and it's one of those great old, just old sort of words of tradition,
mm-hmm.
That we don't use so much anymore. But you hear them and you're like, well, they must have been packed with a lot of meaning at one time. But so I went ahead and looked up what Flotsam and Jetsam mean.
Okay.
And aside from being the two pet eels of Ursula and the Little Mermaid in Disney's The Little Mermaid.
Oh, they are! I forgot about that.
Flotsam and Jetsam are actually old terms in maritime law. So maritime law is the law of the sea.
Right.
Right? That governs, things of the sea. So they're actually legal terms.
Really?
It's really interesting.
Huh.
Flotsam, and this is coming from the Wikipedia article, flotsam is floating wreckage of a ship or its cargo. Jetsam is part of a ship, its equipment, or its cargo that is purposely cast overboard or jettisoned to lighten the load in time of distress and is washed ashore. So jetsam is jettisoned on purpose, right? Okay. It's tossed overboard on purpose.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas flotsam is floating. It's a floating wreckage, right? So flotsam is more like accidental. Jetsam is intentionally, tossed away. But they're supposed to designate these are things that there's specific laws that govern how other seafarers are supposed to treat this stuff, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And but jetsam is also washed ashore. It's stuff that's been washed ashore. So
flotsam is not. It's still floating?
Wait a second. They show a picture here. Flotsam on a beach at Terschelling, Wadden Sea. So that is washed ashore.
So maybe the difference is more in the intentional versus unintentional.
Yeah. Well, there's two other terms they list on the same page, and one of them is lagen, or also called ligen. Is goods or wreckage that is lying on the bottom of the ocean, sometimes marked by a buoy, which can be reclaimed. And derelict is cargo that is also on the bottom of the ocean, but which no one has any hope of reclaiming. In other maritime contexts, derelict may also refer to a drifting abandoned ship. So, yeah, a little bit of education coming your way.
Interesting. Well, that's interesting too, given what happens to Isengard in this, with all the water, right? The flooding.
Exactly. They're actual maritime terms.
That is really cool. I wouldn't have thought that.
That clever Tolkien.
He's so clever.
Who knows what he'll think of next?
I do feel like Flotsam and Jetsam, they need to be said with some kind of accent.
Yeah.
They sound better if they're said with a British or an Australian accent. I told you yesterday that we were watching The Crocodile Hunter on YouTube.
Hey Siri, say Flotsam and Jetsam.
To whom should I send your message?
No, that's not what I want
Siri.
you to do.
Oh, because she has an
to
accent.
whom should I send your message?
Oh, anyway.
Well, at least you tried. But no,
she's got a British accent.
She does have a British accent. I try to have a British accent, but it's not. I know I'm going to spare our listeners.
Okay.
But I told you yesterday we were watching the Crocodile Hunter that he was talking about the Komodo dragon scavenging for Flotsam and Jetsam.
Crikey?
He didn't. He did at a different point in the episode, but but he actually used the words Flotsam and Jetsam.
Yeah.
As the something that the Komodo dragon was scavenging for along the edge of the beach.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so Flotsam
and Jetsam.
It's Flotsam is accidental floating wreckage. See, I think that's actually Jetsam. I think according to the
Wikipedia got it wrong, is what you're saying.
The caption on their terms got it right, but the caption on the picture is wrong.
So Flotsam doesn't wash up.
Right. If you've got any maritime law experts out there, you might want to go and police the Wikipedia page on Flotsam and Jetsam and just make sure that they're actually showing Flotsam and not Jetsam on that page, because according to the definitions they have, that's Jetsam. I'm just saying. It's washed up on a beach.
All right, I think we've.
Anyway, so I was going to cover that anyway, Flotsam and Jetsam in the episode, but we just covered it a little bit earlier.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right on. Well, cool. So thanks for the little note, Rob.
So Flotsam is wreckage, unintentional. Jetsam is jettisoned on purpose. There you go.
Yeah, thrown overboard.
Moving on.
Right now, I'm thinking about making you Jetsam.
Like Jets Pizza?
No,
You're gonna make me some Jets Pizza?
No, I'm thinking about jettisoning you out of the studio so I can actually move along with this episode.
Jets Pizza.
All right. Maybe they'll sponsor our podcast.
Yeah, probably
We
not.
just gave them a shout out every week. All right.
I tried that with Dr. Pepper early on and they didn't, so.
Well, maybe there's not a... Yeah. Well, anyway. It doesn't hurt to keep trying.
Yeah.
We also have a little note from Mary Grace saying that you were correct in her alluding to Star Wars in her haiku from last week.
I knew it.
She said, A New Hope is one of my favorite movies.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right
so
on.
well done, you. I hope she wasn't too disappointed that I didn't pick up on it, but I'm sure she wasn't surprised.
Well, I mean, being disappointed with something you do is kind of commonplace.
Whatever.
So,
Whatever.
So you just come to learn to accept the disappointment. Moving on.
Right.
I'm just being silly. I'm just kidding.
No, you're right. You're right. But that's it. I'm good. That's all our correspondence. The rest is
haiku.
The rest is haiku.
All right.
So we can move it along if you're finished talking about Flotsam and Jetsam.
Well, I am. So check that one off the list.
Okay.
So here we are now, going to the north side.
The north side.
Except we're still on the south side.
Wait, the north side of what?
The north side of Isengard.
Oh.
But I was trying to I was alluding to the song, What? Here we are now going to the south side. The Moby song. Do you remember that song?
Oh, Moby.
Yeah, do you remember
Never
that
really
song?
got into Moby.
Well, but that was like his big hit, you know what I'm saying? Like, where do I have it here? Let's see.
Oh, really? We're going to do this?
Well,
Okay,
maybe not. Maybe we won't.
No, go ahead. I could do a little dancing right now.
No, never mind. I won't bother. Go look it up. But anyway, I was trying to be clever. But But so what happens is Gandalf and the riders and the men of the King's men all decide. At the end of the last chapter, they come up on the south end of Isengard, and they are they find Merry and Pippin, and that's about where the chapter ends.
Yeah.
And they also find out that Treebeard is up on the north side of Isengard, and so Isengard is a fairly large area. I mean, it's not massive,
right.
but it's a large ring right around this Tower of Orthanc. So Gandalf and the King's men go around the wall of Isengard, the outside of Isengard, and they go north. They go around the east side
to get to Saruman.
To go get to Treebeard, who's on the north side.
But isn't Treebeard guarding the tower? Where Saruman's being held?
The tower is right in the middle.
Oh.
Orthanc is right in the middle, and that's where Saruman is.
Why is Treebeard up north then?
That's just, I don't know, that's where he happens to be.
Okay.
He might be trying to guard that end of escape. Right
on. Okay.
Because if I was Saruman wanting to escape, that's probably where I'd try to go, because to the south seems like it's more treacherous for me to go that way.
Right.
Just because that, all my forces have been destroyed. So anyway, Gandalf, the King's men, they all go north to try and get to Treebeard. So that leaves Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and Merry and Pippin there on the south side, just kind of hanging out.
Yep.
And that's who this chapter concerns. So Gimli is hungry.
Well, he's a dwarf. He's always hungry.
And the hobbits are like, good, you're hungry. We can always eat, so let's go find some food.
Right.
And they're also hoping to find some pipeweed at the same time and have a good smoke.
I thought they already found the pipeweed. Because aren't Merry and Pippin smoking when they come upon them?
It says... Yes, they are. However, it says he had men to guard his gate, some of his most faithful servants, I suppose. Anyway, they were favored and got good provisions. And pipeweed? Asked Gimli. No, I don't think so, said Mary. Mary laughed, but that is another story, which can wait until after lunch. Well, let us go and have lunch. So anyway, maybe they did, but they're going to discover some other pipeweed.
Oh, right. Yep.
So they go. They're still hanging out over here, but they go to one of the rooms that's in this wall around Isengard,
right?
To go and find all these provisions that are put away. And the first thing of significance that I found that happens is this conversation about Merry and Pippin and looking like they've actually grown some.
Oh, right, yeah.
You are full of courtesy this morning, laughed Legolas, but maybe, if we have not yet arrived, you would already have been keeping one another company again. Maybe, and why not, said Pippin. We had foul fare with the orcs, and little enough for days before that. It seems a long while since we could eat to heart's content. It does not seem to have done you any harm, said Aragorn. Indeed, you look in the bloom of health. Aye, you do indeed, said Gimli, looking them up and down over the top of his cup. Why, your hair is twice as thick and curly as when we parted. And I would swear that you have both grown somewhat, if that is possible for hobbits of your age. This Treebeard, at any rate, has not starved you. He has not, said Merry, but Ents only drink, and drink is not enough for content. Treebeard's draughts may be nourishing, but one feels the need of something solid, and even Limbus is none the worse for a change. You have drunk of the waters of the Ents, have you? Said Legolas. Ah, then I think it is likely that Gimli's eyes do not deceive him. Strange songs have been sung of the draughts of Fangorn. Many strange tales have been told about that land, said Aragorn. I have never entered it. Come, tell me more about it and about the Ents. Anyway, it's evident that something has changed with Pippin and Merry, and that despite all of the lack of good food they had for such a long time, first of all with the long journey they had, and then the orcs capturing them,
right,
that somehow they seem to have grown, significantly enough to be noticed, visibly noticed, in just basically 9 days, right? So apparently the Ent draft is pretty potent stuff.
I think I could use some of that.
Yeah.
I'd like to be taller.
No, yeah.
I'd like thicker, longer hair too.
Well, I like you just the way you are, personally.
Oh, thanks. I just wish I was a little bit taller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a pain having you stools everywhere. But yeah, that's interesting. I'd forgotten that little tidbit. Do they make them grow in the movie?
I think there's a kind of a passing reference to it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's in the act, it may only be in the extended edition that they talk about it, but yeah, there's like a reference to it.
It's interesting. Well, I guess it makes sense, right? Because
probably
what's fit for large trees is not meant to be drunk regularly by small hobbits.
Yeah. Your hair is twice as thick and curly as when we parted, and I would swear that you have both grown somewhat, if that is possible for hobbits of your age. Anyway, so just an interesting little thing about the Ent draft.
Yeah.
So after they eat, Merry produces a small leather bag full of tobacco, and they say Pippin found 2 small barrels washed up out of some cellar or storehouse. It's as fine a pipeweed as you could wish for, and quite unspoiled. It feels good and it smells good, says Gimli. Merry says, My dear Gimli, it is longbottom leaf. There, where the hornblower brand marks on the barrels, as plain. How it came here I can't imagine. For Saruman's private use, I fancy. I never knew that it went so far abroad, but it comes in handy now. So apparently this is pipeweed from the Shire, right? This is a well-known, beloved brand of pipeweed that's somehow made its way all the way from the Shire down here.
So Saruman's got connections.
Apparently so.
All over Middle Earth.
Apparently he has connections to bring him all the good stuff of Middle Earth. And
hey, you know what? There's got to be some perks from being the Dark Lord trying to conquer the world. I mean, you can't do it without pipeweed.
That's true.
So
that's true. You gotta. Yeah. That's. I mean, first things first. Really.
First things first.
Yeah.
You got to be relaxed and.
Okay.
You know.
All right. My plan to take over and become the new Dark Lord. What am I going to need first? Well, obviously pipeweed.
Obviously pipeweed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best stuff that the Shire has to offer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we'll take it from there.
He's no good if he's just stressed out.
I mean, it's got it's thinking. You got to be able to think.
Right.
So sit
exactly.
there and smoke your pipe and think.
Yeah. And then it enhances creativity. So
that's right.
I think yeah. But I guess there are little maybe this comes up later in the chapter. But do you think it bothers them just a bit to be like? I mean, you think they're bothered by this? I mean, they're happy to have the pipeweed, but are they like, oh man, like Saruman's network is even greater and more extensive than even we thought to imagine?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know they get bothered by it right now. I think they, because I mean, they all have a sense that they beat Saruman, right? That Saruman is in deep doo-doo.
Right.
And, so I think it's more of just like it's kind of a mystery that they're scratching their heads about. Like, man, how did he come to have this longbottom leaf here? Like, who's working for him up in the Shire?
Right. Right.
So,
because they have a suspicion of who it might be.
Yeah, later on,
right.
I think they discuss that.
Yeah.
They do talk about, at first they talk about how, there doesn't seem to have enough pipes to go around. Gimli says, "Is there no pipe in all your plunder?" Mary says, "No, I'm afraid not. We have not found any, not even here in the guard rooms. Saruman kept this dainty to himself, it seems. And I don't think it would be any use knocking on the doors of Orthanc to beg a pipe of him. Excuse me, Master Saruman? Let me borrow a pipe."
Yeah.
"We shall have to share pipes, as good friends must at a pinch." I mean, good friends gotta share pipes.
You know
sometimes,
what? It's just like sharing a soda. Like, what's the difference, really?
Right. Mm-hmm. As long as you don't backwash into the soda.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, sharing a pipe is not nearly as bad as, like, say, sharing a toothbrush.
Yeah, sharing a toothbrush, that's...
totally gross. I still remember this episode, Mad About You. Did you ever watch Mad About You? Oh, okay.
I mean, I know what it is, but I never watched it.
Yeah, but I still remember this episode. I didn't watch it that often anyway, but there was this whole episode, they're this married couple, and it turns out she discovers that her husband used her toothbrush, and the whole episode is just like... she can't get over the fact that she's got to get a new toothbrush. Like, she can't. I know. Like, but this is even between a married couple.
Yeah.
So anyway, using a pipe, definitely not a big deal.
Right.
You can always wipe it off. Mm-hmm. Wash it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but also, it's hot stuff.
Right. So it kind of sanitizes.
So there's maybe a little bit of sanitization going on there. Even as you smoke. I don't know. That's just a thought, but that may not be entirely accurate. Yeah. Anyway, but luckily Pippin has a few extra pipes.
Yes. I love this exchange. I thought it was very funny.
Go ahead, read it.
Half a moment, said Pippin. Putting his hand inside the breast of his jacket, he pulled out a little soft wallet on a string. "I keep a treasure or two near my skin, as precious as rings to me. Here's one, my old wooden pipe, and here's another, an unused one. I have carried it a long way, though I don't know why. I never really expected to find any pipeweed on the journey, when my own ran out. But now it comes in useful after all." He held up a small pipe with a wide flattened bowl and handed it to Gimli. "Does that settle the score between us?" he said. "Settle it!" cried Gimli. "Most noble hobbit. It leaves me deep in your debt." So,
nice.
I love that. That was great.
Yeah, there's it's like a little mini catastrophe.
It really is.
Just when they thought that they were gonna have to share pipes.
Yep.
Turns out Pippin had
from great evil
an extra
comes
one
great
all
good.
Along. That's right.
Well, I think it's so funny too that Pippin was just carrying an extra pipe, and even he's like, "Yeah, I don't know why I had this. It's not like I ever expected to need it, but
right.
It's almost like a blankie of sorts, like a security.
Well,
object.
I mean, if you're a hobbit and you're setting out on who knows how long a journey, you're like, well, what are some things that I don't want to? What are some problems that I want to find myself in? I don't want to find myself with an abundance of pipeweed and no
way to smoke it.
Right.
Yeah. I guess that this is before the whole thing with paper and rolling has been discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pipe's preferable anyway.
Pipe is preferable. It's a lot less work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was funny too. Like, Gimli is he's just over the moon. Mm-hmm. Not only has it settled, not only are they good, But Gimli's now in Pippin's debt.
Right.
Just because of a pipe.
Right.
So, I thought that was very touching.
Nice going, Pippin.
Yeah.
And so they kind of, stretch. Aragorn says, "Now let us take our ease here for a little. We will sit on the edge of ruin and talk," as Gandalf says, while he is busy elsewhere. "I feel a weariness such as I have seldom felt before." Aragorn's such a wuss.
It was funny as I was reading this last night.
I'm so weary. All I've done has been in battle for the last 10 days.
It was funny as I was reading this last night. I read that and I was like, man, I was really tired last night, and I was like, man, Aragorn, I feel you, man. I'm so tired. I've never felt this weary before in my life. And I haven't even been to the gym today. Now who's the wuss? Seriously.
Yeah, Aragorn, I think, deserves a nice break.
Yeah, he deserves a break.
Then he lay back and sent from his lips a thin stream of smoke. Wonderful. All right, so now we enter into the part of the chapter that I refer to as story time with Pippin. So basically, for the next several pages, Pippin is just going to be telling them what's been going down at Isengard for the last several days.
So y'all get comfortable. We're just going to read it.
Now, one thing to note here is that since the beginning of, since the breaking of the Fellowship, when Merry and Pippin got carried away with the orcs by the orcs on Aemon Will and Boromir died, it's only been 9 days.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It seems like a lot longer, doesn't it?
It does seem way longer.
But then when you think about it, you're like, well, I guess that makes sense. Like if you kind of count the days in your head, but just another.
Well, so much happens in that time period. It does seem longer.
Right. So yeah, I mean, 9 days.
9 days.
The breaking of the Fellowship. That's how far we've come. So it's like it's almost like a chapter a day. There's a lot that they talk about in this conversation. I don't want to hit every single thing because some of it's not hugely significant. But there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff that's mentioned, and they talk. The first big thing the Ents get into, or the hobbits get into, is that Pippin starts talking about is meeting up with the Ents and what it was like to kind of be hanging around during the Ent moot, how long it lasted. Yeah. And he says, and then late in the third day of their moot, the Ents suddenly blew up. It was amazing. The forest had felt as tense as if a thunderstorm was brewing inside it. Then all at once it exploded. I wish you could have heard their song as they marched. And Pippin said, this is Merry, that's Merry actually who says that. And then Pippin says, if Saruman had heard it, he would be 100 miles away by now, even if he had had to run on his own legs. Though Isengard be strong and hard, as cold as stone and bare as bone, we go to war, to hew the stone and break the door. And so next we find out exactly what the deal was with this moving forest, right? Because we kind of figured out the moving forest is not the Ents. The Ents are more like human trees. They're more giant human trees. Right. They when they're standing still, they can look like trees, but then again, even if you were to look at one standing up close, you'd be like, that's not a tree. That's some
right, because it has like eyes and like arms and toes and
exactly
stuff.
some kind of humanoid figure.
Right.
But the horns are more like
how
trees.
Do you say it?
Horns.
Horns.
That's how I say it. Yeah.
Horns.
I think that's the right way of pronouncing it.
Okay.
So.
And they're more tree-like.
Right. The horns are awesome. Like, just they're and so they talk about where they came from. Huorn is the name the Ents call them in their short language. Pippin says Treebeard won't say much, or Merry. Yeah, Merry says Treebeard won't say much about them, but I think they are Ents that have become almost like trees, at least to look at. They stand here and there in the wood or under its eaves, silent, watching endlessly over the trees. But deep in the darkest dales there are hundreds and hundreds of them, I believe. There is a great power in them, and they seem able to wrap themselves in shadow. It is difficult to see them moving, but they do. They can move very quickly if they are angry. You stand still looking at the weather, maybe, or listening to the rustling of the wind, and then suddenly you find that you are in the middle of a wood with great groping trees all around you. They still have voices and can speak with the Ents. That is why they are called Huorns, Treebeard says. But they have become queer and wild, dangerous. I should be terrified of meeting them if there was no true Ents about to look after them.
Interesting.
So we're never really sure exactly what the horns are.
Right. They seem to be related.
They're definitely related to the tree, but it's like they're not quite trees and they're not quite Ents.
Right. Right.
It's like they were maybe Ents once upon a time, but they've fallen asleep so long. And Treebeard had referred to the notion that there were many Ents who had kind of fallen asleep a long time ago.
Right.
And had been asleep for so long that they were essentially trees now.
Right.
Right. So you kind of wonder if these are just once upon a time the horns were Ents, and just through a process of slowly falling asleep they become.
Yeah, but they seem to have unique powers that the Ents don't have.
Yeah.
Right, like the ability to wrap themselves in shadow and just kind of move, slowly or quickly, and it just they seem different enough. That it just doesn't, like, they're related, but I don't know that they're necessarily, like, a fallen asleep Ent either.
Yeah.
Just kind of curious.
Yeah.
But this is what...
It's kind of bananas. I mean, to think about that there's another tree-like entity,
that seems, obviously capable of doing a ton of damage.
Right.
Like the Ents are, but in maybe a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But these must be the guys that we've been reading about the last few chapters, right? Like about the...
Well, and that's what you piece together is you hear about Merry and Pippin's view of them and the way that the horns kind of moved on after the Ents. They went. We find out just a little bit later that the horns go after the orcs. They found out the orcs have marched away from Isengard to go attack down at Helm's Deep. Right. And so the horns keep going. Mm-hmm. They keep going past Isengard, even as the Ents stick around.
Right, and that's what it was a couple chapters ago. I guess I don't know if it was in Helm's Deep or Road to I think it was Road to Isengard, where they're resting and they see like the shadow, right? And they all want to draw weapons, and Gandalf is like, no.
Yeah, when they're traveling up and they're in the valley of the ice, the Vale of Isen,
right?
And they get surrounded, like in the middle of the night, they get surrounded by this like it's like kind of a wind, and
like
just
a
darkness.
Deep darkness, yeah. So that must have been the Hurons.
Yeah, it's I don't know the way they describe it's not like a purely naturalistic kind of thing. Like these are just moving trees. They seem to have some kind of like magical power.
Right. That's why I'm not convinced that they're just fallen asleep Ents. I feel like there's got to be more to the story. They almost seem like enchanted. Yeah. Like there's some kind of wizardry.
But we never find out what that is. I don't know. I feel like it's something about these particular creatures, and it may just be something with. I don't know. Treebeard doesn't say enough to let us really understand.
He doesn't.
I mean, I'm sure Treebeard knows, but he doesn't say enough.
Yeah, he must know.
He doesn't say enough to...
So maybe that means that it's just...
fully identify it. I'll tell you who would know.
Who?
Is Yavanna. Yavanna would probably be able to tell us all about
Yavanna would
it.
totally be able to tell us. Yeah. 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 She probably had a little something to do with it. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. I wonder if any of them are banana trees.
No. Unlikely. Banana trees are usually down in the tropics. So.
Yeah. Seems like Middle Earth has a pretty temperate climate, though.
Grab my copy of the letters up there. Please.
Okay.
Or here, I'll go get them.
No, I'm already up.
Well, you're moving as slow as an Ent.
I'm just not being hasty.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry, you wanted what now?
The letters. The one with the purple top?
Got it.
I just want to look up, see a little bit.
You want to look up bananas?
No, horns.
Are there bananas in Middle Earth? I wonder if there are. Surely there's got to be. Seems like that would be something that hobbits would enjoy eating.
Well, I'm sure they'd enjoy eating just
like
about
banana
anything.
pudding, banana stew.
Well, there's no mention of the horns in the index.
Oh, really?
Of the letters. So apparently Tolkien didn't say much about the horns in his letters.
The mystery deepens.
The only thing is here, I'll get this.
No, I'll get. Okay,
no,
fine.
You're gonna. It's hard to explain which one I want now. So, let's see here. Look up
La-di-da-di-da.
horns and.
I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna see what Siri knows about the Hurons. Not to be confused with Hurons, right?
Right.
Those people that were in the French Indian War. See, how do we spell it again?
Well, there's quite a few references in Book 8 of the History of Middle Earth, but I'm not going to bother looking that up right now.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do a separate episode on horns at some point.
Oh,
Or maybe a bonus. Maybe we'll do one of our bonus videos on horns.
Oh, that could
would be a good
cool.
topic. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, horns. That's what that forest was that just all of a sudden sprung up. Put that away. We're not gonna.
Wait, I was going to say that Wikipedia says that they are capable of locomotion. Everybody's doing a bridge.
Oh, I hate that song so much.
That's such a funny word. I wouldn't have expected to see locomotion in a Wikipedia article about Huons.
Yeah. You had to bring that song up. Okay.
Yep.
You
You
just
have it in
had
your
to bring that
head.
song up.
Sorry. I couldn't resist. It was either that or I like to eat
No, stop.
apples and bananas. Okay, fine.
All right.
Moving on.
You've broken me. All right.
Sorry. I was just tickled.
So the horns, they were the creatures. They were this forest that sprung up all of a sudden.
And ate all the orcs.
Yeah,
right.
And did whatever they did with
You don't
them.
want to get on their bad side, yeah.
Yeah. And I think Pippin even makes reference to the idea that you don't want to be around the horns when the Ents aren't around. You know, it's like the Ents.
Yeah, it seems like they can be dangerous.
And there were a few Ents hanging out down at Helm's Deep with the horns that were down there. Remember that? There was.
Oh, were there?
There was they referenced seeing a couple of horns or a couple of Ents go striding off when they were walking through the horn forest.
Oh, that's right. That's why
Yeah.
I thought they were Ents.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I thought they were all Ents. That's right. Yeah, so it seems like they need to be kind of kept in check.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Well,
they
the
could.
Ents are the tree shepherds, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's really cool.
All right, so Saruman. So we get into a little bit of discussion of the order of battle, and
Like how things went down.
how things went down at Isengard.
Right.
And basically the Ents had marched towards Isengard a few days ago, and they were kind of standing on the outskirts and weren't really making their presence known yet. And as they were standing there, it says Isengard emptied, right? Saruman emptied Isengard. I saw the enemy go, endless lines of marching orcs and troops of them mounted on grey wolves. And there were battalions of men, too. Many of them carried torches, and in the flare I could see their faces. Most of them were ordinary men, rather tall and dark-haired and grim, but not particularly evil-looking. But there were some others that were horrible. Man-high, but with goblin faces, sallow, leering, squint-eyed. Do you know, they reminded me at once of that southerner at Bree, only he was not so obviously orc-like as most of these were. Aragorn says, I thought of him too. We had many of these half-orcs to deal with at Helm's Deep. It seems plain now that the southerner was a spy of Saruman's, but whether he was working with the Black Riders or for Saruman alone, I do not know. It is difficult with these evil folk to know when they are in league and when they are cheating one another. So the orcs, this army of orcs and men go marching out from Isengard, and
right.
and you know, as Pippin, who says this? Mary says, yeah, Pippin says, basically it emptied Isengard of all of its forces. So Saruman is going all in, trying to destroy Rohan,
right?
And that appears to be his undoing. He holds nothing back,
He's putting all his eggs in one basket,
which is kind of a boneheaded strategic move, you know.
Yep.
Anyway, it is what it is, but
it's a little bananas.
it is.
It doesn't seem like a good war tactic.
So, the horns go after the orcs. It says, I believe that horns began to move south as soon as the gates were shut again. Their business was with orcs. They were far down the valley in the morning, or at any rate there was a shadow there that one couldn't see through. As soon as Saruman had sent off all his army, our turn came. Treebeard put us down and went up to the gates and began hammering on the doors and calling for Saruman. That would be a little bit freaky if I was Saruman.
Yeah. There's a giant tree trying to break down my door.
Calling my name. There was no answer except arrows and stones from the walls. But arrows are no use against Ents. They hurt them, of course, and infuriate them, like stinging flies. But an Ent can be struck as full of orc arrows as a pincushion and take no serious harm. They cannot be poisoned, for one thing, and their skin seems to be very thick and tougher than bark. It takes a very heavy axe stroke to wound them seriously. They don't like axes. But there would have to be a great many axemen to one Ent. A man that hacks once at an Ent never gets a chance of a second blow. A punch from an Ent fist crumples up iron like thin tin.
Dang.
When Treebeard had got a few arrows in him, he began to warm up, to get positively hasty, as he would say. He let out a great hoom-hom, and a dozen more Ents came striding up. An angry Ent is terrifying. Their fingers and their toes just freeze onto rock, and they tear it up like bread crust. It was like watching the work of great tree roots in 100 years, all packed into a few moments. I love the description of the Ents in battle and like how they, how they work. Because you think about, you think about like really like solid stone or like concrete, and how hard it seems to us, but like plant life over time like grows through that stuff, like breaks it apart, like big tree roots come up through it,
Yeah, they break through sidewalks.
It's kind of this slow growth, and so you think about that, but sped up into real time. You know, that power. Yeah. And that's the power of the Ents, right?
Dude, man.
To break, but I love that description of like breaking apart the walls of stone like it's bread crust.
Like it's bread crust, yeah.
You think about like, breaking off, like whenever you make bread and we like break, it's like a big loaf and we break off little pieces and dip it, just like break the Ents, just like grabbing the wall and just like breaking it.
Yes.
But also the thing of like they freeze onto, it's like their hands freeze onto these things.
It's like they have suction cups.
Yeah, and just like, it's just,
yeah,
it's crazy. Well, you remember watching Spider-Man a few weeks ago, and they show up close when he first figures out he can climb walls, and they show up close and like he has little bristles on his on his fingertips, and they like grab into the little, like the tiny little microscopic, nooks and crannies on the wall. It's almost like that's what's happening with the Ents.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
these guys are destructive.
Yeah.
I love when Pippin says that he began when Treebeard got to he began to warm up to get positively hasty, as he would say.
Yeah.
So the Ents aren't often hasty, but when they are, there's good reason to be.
Yeah, and this makes me think, of course, of going back all the way to the Waldman Letter, which we talked about in I think it was episode 1. It's the letter that's at the beginning of the Silmarillion, but he talks about just the power that the great armies and governors of the world, the great ones of the world, disregard the kind of the natural power and things, and the like lesser things, the things they think are the lesser powers of the world.
Yes.
But then suddenly it rears its head.
Yep.
And that this chapter and the power of the Ents makes me think of that, right? They're so easy to disregard because they're so like
they're slow and big.
They're slow and big, and they kind of keep to themselves if you don't bother them. But if you get on the wrong side,
forget about it.
Man, yeah, it's like
they go positively bananas.
It's like the power. It's just like the power of nature against you.
Yeah. Yeah, which is one of the most powerful forces in the world. So, yeah, be nice to the trees.
Absolutely.
Save the trees, guys. Hug them if you can.
Yes. Take a hat off, boy, when you're talking to me, and be there when I feed the trees.
Feed the trees. Yes, feed them, hug them, love them, and save them.
Yeah, so that's a good song. I like that song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good one.
I just sang it. My voice cracked.
Who is that?
It's Belly.
It's Belly. Good old Belly. Yeah. There's a lot of good songs out there about trees.
It's a great song from the 90s.
It is really good. Turns out Saruman fed the trees, didn't he?
Yeah, he should have listened to this song.
He should have listened, yeah. He should have taken his hat off and listened. Yep.
This is like Treebeard singing to a young Saruman.
Take your hand off when you're talking to me. doing? Yep, only Saruman would have been a Belly fan. He could have avoided a whole lot of heartache.
Yeah, it's that's a great song. It's got a great beat.
Mm-hmm.
Love the guitar.
Yeah.
In it too. Just the tone of the guitar.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
that's a nice fun tangent. That's like our new thing. Apparently, we're working like a song.
Well,
each episode.
as it comes up, well, you know how me and music, so.
Oh, I know. I'm not complaining. I like it.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a little interlude now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it keeps you from going completely bananas with all this Tolkien talk, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the orcs, the Ents stick around. They're doing damage to Isengard now. They pushed, pulled, tore, shook, and hammered. Clang, bang, crash, crack. In a few minutes, they had these huge gates just lying in ruin, and some were already beginning to eat into the walls like rabbits in a sandpit. I don't know what Saruman thought was happening, but anyway, he did not know how to deal with it. His wizardry may have been falling off lately, of course. But anyway, I think he has not much grit, not much plain courage alone in a tight place without a lot of slaves and machines and things, if you know what I mean.
I thought that was kind of a bit of a Tolkien jab.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Tolkien had in mind a lot of, like, modern rulers of his time. Mm-hmm. They talk tough when they have their huge armies and machines around them, but, like, when
take
it
all
comes
that
to
away.
this, take all that away, they're not much.
There's
no
innate courage, yeah.
Nevertheless, Aragorn says Saruman, has great power, and he's very skilled in the power of persuasion. And so don't count him out. Don't count him out too much yet. But next we see that little bit about leaving the Ents out of his calculations, right? Like he didn't.
Saruman left
left the Ents out of his calculation.
Right.
He had no plan for them, and there was no time to make any once they had set to work. Mm-hmm. And Saruman had been at the wall, but now he flees in panic, and he manages just to get back to Orthanc.
Yeah. I thought this was a funny mental image to me. Quick beam pursuing him. Said Saruman fled in panic. He seems to have been at the gates when we arrived. I expect he came to watch his splendid army march out. When the Ents broke their way in, he left in a hurry. They did not spot him at first, but the night had opened out, and there was a great light of stars, quite enough for Ents to see by, and suddenly Quickbeam gave a cry, "The tree killer! The tree killer!" Quickbeam is a gentle creature, but he hates Saruman all the more furiously for that. His people suffered cruelly from orc axes. He leapt down the path from the inner gate, and he can move like a wind when he is roused. There was a pale figure hurrying away in and out of the shadows of the pillars, and it had nearly reached the stairs to the tower door, but it was a near thing. Quickbeam was so hot after him that he was within a step or two of being caught and strangled when he slipped in through the door. So there's this, like, small, pale, like, dude with this long flowing locks and his cloak, his gray, his white robe.
It's his cloak of many colors.
That's right. It's his cloak of many colors, fleeing, just like billowing in the wind. And here's this ginormous tree, like tree killer, I'm gonna get you. And it was just a funny mental image to me.
Right. Yeah. Totally. And
I'm really kind of surprised Quickbeam didn't catch him. I guess Saruman had enough of a head start.
Probably had enough of a head start.
Yeah.
And but then right after this funny mental image of being chased, there's kind of a little mini tragedy. With Beachbone. It says one of the Ents, Beachbone, I think he was called, a very tall, handsome Ent, got caught in a spray of some liquid fire and burned like a torch. A horrible sight. Mm-hmm. So fire is apparently, real danger, is one of the dangers for the Ents, which makes sense.
Yeah, forest fires.
It's also a danger for human beings. You don't want to get caught in
liquid
fire.
You don't want to have a fire in your jacket. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, but what follows immediately after that is funny, and that's when they got really mad.
They weren't mad before.
Yeah. That sent them mad. I thought they had been really roused before, but I was wrong. I saw what it was like at last. It was staggering. They roared and boomed and trumpeted until stones began to crack and fall at the mere noise of them. Mary and I lay on the ground and stuffed our cloaks into our ears. Round and round the rock of Orthanc the Ents went striding and storming like a howling gale, breaking pillars, hurling avalanches of boulders down the shafts, tossing up huge slabs of stone into the air like leaves. The tower was in the middle of a spinning whirlwind. I saw iron posts and blocks of masonry go rocketing up hundreds of feet, and smash against the windows of Orthanc. But Treebeard kept his head. He had not had any burns, luckily. He did not want his folk to hurt themselves in their fury, and he did not want Saruman to escape out of some hole in the confusion. Many of the Ents were hurling themselves against the Orthanc rock, but that defeated them. It is very smooth and hard. Some wizardry is in it, perhaps, older and stronger than Saruman's. Anyway, they could not get a grip on it or make a crack in it, and they were bruising and wounding themselves against it. So apparently Orthanc itself is a little
Very
bit.
well
It's a tough nut to crack for the
literally.
Yeah, for the Ents.
Yep.
So Saruman appears to be safe in there for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else about Isengard, I mean, the Ents have just ripped this place to shreds. They start ripping up. They start ripping up the ground, and apparently they're preparing to flood Isengard with the waters from the Isen.
Mm-hmm.
They're making all these kind of holes in the ground,
right?
So that when they release the waters of the Isen River into Isengard, it'll just kind of go down into all of the deep places and everything and just wash it out. I like this a little bit, Pippin asks Treebeard if he's tired, and Treebeard says, "Tired? Well, no, not tired, but stiff. I need a good draft of Entwash. We have worked hard. We have done more stone cracking and earth gnawing today than we have done in many a long year before. But it is nearly finished. When night falls, do not linger near this gate or in the tunnel. Water may come through, and it will be foul water for a while, until all the filth of Saruman is washed away. Then Isen can run clean again." He began to pull down a bit more of the walls in a leisurely sort of way, just to amuse himself. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
So that's funny little... a funny little mental image of him just kind of like standing near a wall, having his hand on the wall, and being like, that feels good.
Yeah, right.
And so there's a little bit of a pause here in the action, and Pippin recounts Gandalf first riding up.
Right. So that's where Gandalf went when he left.
Right.
Aragorn and Gimli and everybody else.
Right.
Right.
He came back to Isengard, and Pippin says, "Now, did Gandalf say, 'Hello, Pippin, this is a pleasant surprise'?" "No, indeed. He said, 'Get up, you tomfool of a took. Where in the name of wonder is all this ruin is Treebeard? I want him, quick.'"
Yes. Such a Gandalf thing.
Yeah, and especially towards Pippin.
Oh, absolutely.
Gandalf's always picking on Pippin.
Pippin's the one that dropped the rock into the well, too, right? Yeah.
Fool of a took.
Fool of a took.
Yeah. So Gandalf has a little conversation with Treebeard. He tells Treebeard he needs his help. "You have done much, but I need more. I have about 10,000 orcs to manage." Then those two went off and had a council together in some corner. It must have seemed very hasty to Treebeard, for Gandalf was in a tremendous hurry and was already talking at a great pace before they passed out of hearing. They were only away a matter of minutes, perhaps a quarter of an hour. Then Gandalf came back to us, and he seemed relieved, almost merry. He did say he was glad to see us then. "But Gandalf," I cried, "where have you been? And have you seen the others?" "Wherever I may have been, I am back," he answered in a genuine Gandalf manner. "Yes, I have seen some of the others, but news must wait. This is a perilous night, and I must ride fast. But the dawn may be brighter, and if so, we shall meet again. Take care of yourselves, and keep away from Orthanc. Goodbye." So, I think what this conversation was Gandalf and Treebeard. Gandalf basically saying, "Hey, I needed some assistance down at Helm's Deep. Mm-hmm. So send some reinforcements down there."
So the Ents sent the Hurons down there, right?
The Horns.
Yeah.
"Horns will help," said Treebeard. Then he went away, and we did not see him again until this morning. So that's all they find out, that Merry and Pippin find out. Treebeard said, "Horns will help your friends who need help." And they're probably like,
whatever that means.
Yeah, whatever that means, okay.
Yeah. I think you all are bananas, but okay.
Yeah. And then it was, and then at midnight of that night, the Horndark had passed, and the Ents release the flood.
Right.
They released the flood upon Isengard. And that's apparently where all this mist came
so
from.
it wasn't a giant bubble bath.
Right.
Which is what I was hoping for.
Well, it kind of was.
Well,
but it was all the mist was happening because of all the fires and everything burning.
Right.
In Isengard.
It wasn't because of this. Well, yeah, then the steam from the water, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the fire was heating the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So smoky, steamy mist.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Isengard began to fill up with black... Why don't you read that? Isengard began to fill up.
I'm not quite sure where you are.
Oh.
We don't have the same copy. Am I behind?
I don't know. You gotta keep up.
I thought I was keeping up. Isengard began to fill with water.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, so this explains why... Oh, I turned the page too soon. I guess I'm being too hasty.
Being too hasty again.
Isengard began to fill up with black creeping streams and pools. They glittered in the last light of the moon as they spread over the plain. Every now and then the waters found their way down into some shaft or spout hole. Great white steams hissed up, smoke rose in billows. There were explosions and gusts of fire. One great coil of vapor went whirling up, twisting round and round Orthanc, until it looked like a tall peak of cloud, fiery underneath and moonlit above, and still more water poured in, until at last Isengard looked like a huge flat saucepan, all steaming and bubbling.
Right.
Saucepan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, Isengard needs some cleaning up, and that's where...
They're washing it.
That's the kind of the last step for the Ents here.
So they are giving it a bubble bath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I told you.
Okay.
Why
Right
did you
on.
go?
I don't know. I thought it was too good to be true. I love bubble baths.
All right. So, Isengard is going to get cleaned up here, and so that's kind of the account of the way the battle all went down. Right. It was.
So is this
the armies. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. So this explains that stream that dried up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
For a bit.
For a bit that we read about in the other chapter,
right.
And then kind of refreshed itself.
Well, it might also. I think there was some. Saruman had dammed a lot of it for his own purposes too, to harness the power of the river, right?
Okay.
Damming of rivers,
but then it was refreshed,
right? So
they undid those dams, is
right?
What you're saying, okay?
They let it loose, and then the river starts flowing again.
Okay, gotcha.
So the order of battle, just to recount it briefly, was the Ents and the Horns march up to Isengard. Saruman doesn't realize they're there, marches his army down towards Helm's Deep. Then the Horns begin to follow the orcs,
right? And
the Ents smash up Isengard,
right?
Tear it apart. Saruman gets into his little Orthanc tower and seems safe for the moment. And the Ents start breaking up the land around Orthanc, the Isengard area, to so that they can release the waters of the Isen into it and clean up the Isen.
Right.
And then they do that, and that's where we find ourselves now. And then Gandalf had, of course, come and asked for help from Treebeard, and that's where the Horns had come in down at Helm's Deep. Right. So these two battles are going on more or less simultaneously.
Right. But on two different fronts.
Two different fronts, right?
Yeah.
So last, Gimli says, okay, well that explains a lot of what's been happening, but I'm kind of wondering what in the world became of Wormtongue, right? Old Wormtongue, Grima. You told Theoden he was with Saruman. How did he get there? Oh yes, I forgot about that, said Pippin. He did not get here till this morning. We had just lit the fire and had some breakfast when Treebeard appeared again. We heard him humming and calling our names outside. And so Wormtongue comes riding up, and he sees the Ents. He sees Treebeard, and freaks out, and realizes that, I thought I was coming here and was going to be all safe with Saruman, and now it's looking like it's even worse here.
It's like, I'm a little late.
So he tries to run, and Treebeard, I love this mental image, he said, he was so bewildered that he did not seem to notice us at first. When he did, he gave a cry and tried to turn his horse round and ride off. But Treebeard took 3 strides, put out a long arm, and lifted him out of the saddle. His horse bolted in terror, and he groveled on the ground. He said he was Grima, friend and counselor of the king, and had been sent with important messages from Theoden to Saruman. So he tries to work some of his, worm some of his, words in there to try and make it sound like he was coming with a message from Theoden.
Right.
And that he was the only messenger brave enough to make the trip.
Right.
But they don't buy it. They've already been warned about Wormtongue.
Right.
And so they basically say, well, we're going to give you, I think they give him 2 options, right?
Yeah. They say you can stay here and wait for your master to come back.
Right.
or you can go to Orthanc.
Right. And go hang out in the tower.
Go hang out in the tower with
Saruman.
Saruman. And Wormtongue, he cowers at the name of Theoden. So he's like, oh, I'll just go hang out with Saruman. But there's a big lake. Yeah. Right? There's now this, like, huge bubble bath between him and the tower. So he's got to figure that out.
Well, and at first he doesn't, I think he says he can't swim or something like that.
Right, yeah.
But he's like, Treebeard's like, it's not that deep. You can just wade through it. But it comes up to, like, his neck at one point. And Treebeard has to...
It's gross water, too. It's so nasty.
Yeah, it's gross water. So Treebeard has to give him a hand. And so he gets up to Orthanc, and where is it? It says the hand reaches out and pulls him in. Yeah, I just thought that's a funny.
That is kind of funny.
It's like the door slightly opens, grabs him, pulls him in.
Yeah, locks the door.
Yeah, locks the door again.
You idiot!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Wormtongue is now in Orthanc with Saruman.
Right.
The last thing is the mystery of the pipeweed.
Yeah, so, where did it come from?
Yeah, so we began with the mystery of the pipeweed, and the chapter ends with Aragorn scratching his head and saying, "Leaf from the south farthing in Isengard. The more I consider it, the more curious I find it. I have never been in Isengard, but I have journeyed in this land, and I know well the empty countries that lie between Rohan and the Shire. Neither goods nor folk have passed that way for many a long year, not openly. Saruman had secret dealings with someone in the Shire, I guess. Wormtongues may be found in other houses than King Theoden's. Was there a date on the barrels?" "Yes," said Pippin. "It was the 1417 crop. That is last year's. No, the year before, of course, now. A good year." "Ah, well, whatever evil was afoot is over now, I hope. Or else it is beyond our reach at present," said Aragorn. "Yet I think I shall mention it to Gandalf, small matter though it may seem among his great affairs." "I wonder what he is doing," said Merry. "The afternoon is getting on. Let us go and look around. You can enter Isengard now at any rate, Strider, if you want to go. But it is not a very cheerful sight." And so the next chapter, of course, will deal with Saruman and then Gandalf. And so remember, the party of Gandalf and the King's men went up to the north side to find Treebeard. And so the next chapter, the voice of Saruman, will we'll hear from Saruman and the other guys as well.
And so the company will reunite on the north side of Isengard.
I think they reunite, but we'll find out.
We will see. Time will tell.
Yeah.
I was thinking it'd be funny if that were Aragorn's like, yeah, it's all a cool story. Like, cool story, Pippin. Like, I dig that. But there's all except one thing. I really wish I had some bananas to eat along with this pipeweed.
Yeah, you're going to think if he can get pipeweed from the north, then why can't he get some bananas from down south in the tropical region?
I know, right? Like, it seems like Saruman's got connections everywhere, so...
Yeah. All right.
Well. Guess I'll have to make do with the pipeweed for now.
Yep.
All right. Who's going first?
I'll go first.
All right. Go for it. Whenever you're ready. Any day now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
Nice.
Well done, John.
That was really nice.
That was really nice.
Okay, so who's going first, me or you?
How many do you have?
Just one.
I'll go first.
Okay.
All right, here's my haiku. From Flotsam and Jetsam. Gaps filled, riddles solved. An unused pipe covers a multitude of sins.
Nice. Good, I like that.
Thanks. I liked it too.
Nice. I love the. That's one of my favorite verses from the Bible is, "Love covers a multitude of sins." I like the allusion there.
Thanks, yo.
All right, here's mine. Like so much bread, Ents shred wizards' walls. In hours, ages of stone undone.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Like so much bread. Yep.
Boom.
Drop the mic.
All right, did you have another one?
Walk off like a boss. No, I only had one.
Oh, okay.
So now we're moving on to our listener.
Right on.
Haikus.
Let's do it.
All right, first and foremost, we have one from Almost Dr. Hutton.
Right.
He actually sent his in last week. So he was ahead of the game.
Yeah, he was ahead of the game.
Here's his one. He says, I have to get through all of our... Oh, here it is. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
From Dr. Hutton, he writes, Grey cloak and pipe smoke. Strider is Gondor's ranger. And a Dunedain.
Nice.
Yes. He is.
Nice, I like it.
We didn't talk about that in that episode, did we? About when Strider or Aragorn starts smoking,
mm-hmm.
and one of the hobbits is like, Strider's back.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yes, I've always been Strider, but I'm also
right.
Dunedain.
Yes, yeah.
One and the same.
Right.
So, clever. Well done. Thank you, Dr. Hudson.
Starting to more embrace his Dunedainish side.
He is.
Yeah.
He is, but he's still got some Strider in him.
Yeah.
You know? You can take the man out of the Strider. You can't take the Strider out of the man. Right?
Yes.
Yes. I did forget to mention, this is not really a haiku, but I forgot to mention our correspondence section that Aaron, the reason, Thiessen, he gave us a little fun fact about, remember how in last week's haiku, no, maybe it was the week before, Mary Grace used a U in her spelling of colors.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron told me that in Canada, they spell the word color with a U.
There you
and
go.
that they also have many other words have a U in them, such as favorite, honor, and valor.
You know, it's all the fault of us Americans with our hastiness.
I know. We can't take the time to just add a U in there. Silent U.
Yeah.
It's a new cool thing, though. All right, here. Do you want to read? We have another haiku from Mr. Fangman.
Sure.
Here we go.
Alrighty. Tell us your story, but first, share some of your feast. Now, how about a pipe?
That's right.
Nice.
That's that's the essential of a good time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got good company, good conversation, good food, good pipe weed.
That's right.
You know, can't do much better. All right. I'm going to save Mary Grace for last because not only did she write a haiku, but she wrote a poem.
Yeah.
So, awesome sauce. Let us share Josh's haiku. He wrote two haikus.
Nice.
I'll read the first. You can read the second. First, Josh writes, Debris washed away by water and Ents thus cleansed. Orthanc purified.
Nice.
Yes.
All right.
Second.
Dynamic duo, Merry and Pippin the Greats. What a story, hey? Nice.
Indeed. Quite
Dynamic
the storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
They are a dynamic duo.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to read Mary Grace's poem or the haiku?
You read the haiku, I'll read the poem.
Deal. All right. Mary Grace's haiku is this. All sides of the tale told among company in baptismal waters.
Nice.
I like that.
Cleansing waters.
Yes. I like the use. Yes. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Very well done.
Definitely baptized Isengard.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's her poem. Ere Orthanc fell, or Olorin came, Saruman the Great was named. His wisdom and power was known to all, but greed for those things caused his fall. He burned through earth and felled good trees. Orcs and Uruk-hai all round were seen. But Fangorn hastily arose, and Ents came with stony blows. They came to war and broke the door, and the Isen cleansed that land so poor. Betwixt them company told this tale, in Flotsam and Jetsam and clear blue air. Nice.
Awesome.
Right on.
Man, you always knock my socks off,
From the
Mary
wise
Grace.
fool.
Yes.
The wise fool, Mary Grace.
She is quite the wisest of the wise fools in my book.
The wisest, the most foolish of the wise fools. And the wisest at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm confused, but sure.
Yeah.
All
You're
right.
right. And wrong.
That's
Right.
Well, thank you all. We love hearing from our listeners.
Absolutely. So for next time, we'll be doing Chapter 10, The Voice of Saruman, the whole thing. Haiku for Chapter 10 are due on January 25th.
January 25th.
So...
Be there or be square.
Be there or be square. Thanks again to our patrons. You all are amazing and our heroes, and you're all good-looking and charming people.
And you're the wind beneath our wings.
That's right. And you're the wind beneath our wings, and you feed the tree.
Yep.
And you would be spared from slaughter by the Ents. Sure, most assuredly.
Most assuredly.
Most assuredly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ents would have your back, no doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What other nice things can we say about them?
I think that's good for now. We don't want to use them all in one episode.
I wasn't trying to imply that any of our other listeners would be slaughtered by the Ents either. I'm just saying most assuredly.
I'm really glad that you put that disclaimer out there.
Well, I just didn't want anybody to worry.
Right.
All right. But our patrons, thanks again to you guys: Shannon Stockbridge, Josh Sosa, William Hutton, Brian Orr, Margaret Lyon, Emilio Perea, Zeke Farmer, Caleb Santana, and James Applegate.
Y'all rock steady.
And once again, if you'd like to become a patron, more cool stuff to come. We got weekly videos and other surprises that are yet to come. But you got to be a patron in order to get those things. You can go to patreon.com/TolkienRoad or TolkienRoad.com.
Yeah.
And let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
All right.
Do it.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
We'll talk at you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Please remember to check out truemyths.org and TolkienRoad.com for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. On our next episode, we'll continue our discussion of Book 3 with Chapter 10, The Voice of Saruman. If you'd like to submit haiku for that episode, please send them to tolkienroadpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.